What if I told you that while emperors rise and fall, while wars reshape continents, and while magic tears reality apart, there's been one organization quietly pulling strings from the shadows for over 4,000 years. An empire without borders, a kingdom without a crown, a brotherhood that has infiltrated every major city, stolen from gods themselves, and somehow convinced the world they're just simple thieves. Today, we're diving deep into the most successful criminal organization in fantasy history. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at a locked door the same way again. Welcome to the complete history of the Thieves Guild. The earliest traces of organized thievery stretch back beyond recorded history, woven into legends of master criminals whose exploits became whispered admiration. Among these legendary figures, none casts a longer shadow than Regine, the footpad, a simple Khajiit who rose to divine status through supernatural skill and cunning. Ancient texts describe him as the purring liar and the cat who walks in sugar, claiming he could steal shadows or sugar from cakes without disturbing the frosting. Archaeological evidence from ancient ruins reveals hidden shrines containing offerings of lockpicks, jewels, and moon sugar, suggesting organized groups of thieves gathered to honor their patron. These loose confederations represent the earliest known assemblies of professional thieves, though they lacked the structure of later organizations. Throughout the First and Second eras, independent thieves operated with varying degrees of organization. In Morrowind, the Fingers of Ebonheart operated as pickpockets in the markets of Narcissus. Hammerfell had its Dune Slippers, expert infiltrators who specialized in bypassing the elaborate traps of Redguard noble houses. High Rock Silk Gloves focused on confidence schemes, targeting the complex Breton court system. The transition from scattered operations to unified structure occurred gradually, as economic rather than ideological catalysts drove change. The rise of the imperial mercantile system during the late First Era expanded trade routes and concentrated wealth in urban centers. As opportunities multiplied, so did risks, with merchants hiring more guards and implementing sophisticated security measures. Records describe increasingly harsh punishments during this period. The Reman dynasty's edict on common crimes mandated that repeat thieves lose a hand, while those who stole from imperial officials faced execution. This pressure created conditions where thieves needed cooperation for mutual protection and benefit. The first documented instance of organized guild structure comes from the imperial city during the early Second Era. The economic collapse following the end of the Reman dynasty created perfect conditions for criminal enterprise. With central authority weakened and widespread poverty driving people toward illegal survival, Emir Dariloth emerged as a significant figure. Dariloth, a former merchant whose business was destroyed during political upheaval, recognized the need for organization among the city's thieves. Rather than keeping spoils for himself, he distributed them among thieves, earning loyalty and establishing hierarchical structure. His innovation was both organizational and philosophical, establishing the first formal code emphasizing discipline, discretion, and most importantly, prohibition against killing. "Dead men pay no brides," he reportedly told followers, understanding that violence attracted unwanted attention and undermined the organization's ability to operate through intimidation and blackmail. This pragmatic approach became a cornerstone throughout Tamriel. The headquarters Dariloth established in the Imperial City waterfront district served as both safe house and meeting place, where thieves exchanged information, fenced stolen goods, and received assignments. This centralized approach departed significantly from previous independent operators, creating a system where members contributed to and benefited from common enterprise. Dariloth's organization might have remained local had it not been for the appearance of the mysterious figure known as the Grey Fox. The true identity remains one of Tamriel's enduring mysteries, complicated by the magical nature of Nocturnal's cowl that he wore. What is clear from historical records is that the Grey Fox expanded Dariloth's foundation, transforming a local thieves' organization into a province-wide network. Contrary to popular belief, the Grey Fox did not found the organization. That honor belongs to Dariloth, but he elevated it from city-based to imperial institution. Under his leadership, chapters were established in major cities throughout Cyrodiil, each maintaining the same code and organizational structure while adapting to local conditions. The Grey Fox also formalized the relationship with Nocturnal, establishing her as patron deity. This choice was pragmatic as well as spiritual. Nocturnal's sphere encompassed darkness and luck, both essential for successful thievery. More importantly, as a Daedric prince, she transcended provincial boundaries and cultural differences, providing unifying focus for members across Tamriel. The Twilight Sepulchre in Skyrim emerged as the spiritual center, housing the mysterious Ebonmere, a direct conduit to Nocturnal's realm of Evergloam. Records suggest the Grey Fox himself travelled there to establish this connection, though details remain obscure. By the late Second Era, members across Tamriel recognise Nocturnal as their benefactor. Expansion beyond Cyrodiil occurred primarily during the late Second and early Third Eras. As the Second Empire stabilised under the Akaviri potentates, increased trade and wealth created new opportunities. The organisation spread first to provinces most integrated into the imperial economy, High Rock and Hammerfell, before establishing footholds in more independent regions like Morrowind and Skyrim. This expansion faced resistance from established criminal organizations. In Skyrim, Nord honor thieves, who followed a code permitting robbery but prohibiting stealth, initially rejected the methods as cowardly. In Morrowind, House Halalu's extensive smuggling operations viewed the guild as unwelcome competition. Success in overcoming these obstacles speaks to the effectiveness of the organizational model and appeal of its code. The foundational principles crystallized during this expansion period. The prohibition against killing evolved from practical measure to defining ethical boundary. Members who violated this faced expulsion or worse, as the organization recognized survival depended on maintaining distinction between thievery and violent crimes. Honor among thieves similarly evolved from necessity to principle. Early thieves needed to trust one another to operate effectively. Over time, this practical requirement developed into elaborate codes governing interactions between members. Stealing from fellow members became taboo, as did interfering with another's assigned job. Internal structure became more sophisticated during this period. The position of Guildmaster, first held by Dariloth in the Imperial City chapter, became the recognized leadership role in each major hall. Below the Guildmaster, specialized roles emerged. Fences who converted stolen goods into coin, trainers who taught skills to newer members, and in some chapters, dedicated enforcers ensuring compliance. By the beginning of the Third Era, the organization had established itself as a shadow institution mirroring the Empire itself. Present in every province, operating according to consistent principles, yet adapting to local conditions. In provinces with strong imperial presence, operations were more open, sometimes maintaining semi-legitimate facades. In regions where imperial authority was weaker, the guild remained more secretive, often integrating with local criminal traditions. The relationship with authority followed a pattern of pragmatic adaptation. Rather than directly challenging law enforcement, the guild typically preferred infiltration and corruption. Guards and officials received bribes to look the other way, while those who couldn't be bought were carefully avoided rather than confronted. This delicate balance between criminality and quasi-legitimacy became a defining characteristic. Unlike bandits or marauders, members operated within social ecosystems, taking care not to disrupt them entirely. The prohibition against killing served this end, as did unwritten rules against stealing from the destitute or targeting essential services. As the organization expanded across Tamriel's provinces, its spiritual foundation deepened through connection to Nocturnal. Records reveal a complex relationship that transcends simple worship. Nocturnal occupies a unique position among Daedric princes. Known as the Mistress of Shadows, Lady of Twilight, and the Unfathomable One, she governs darkness, night, and luck. Unlike many Daedric princes who demand overt worship or bloody sacrifice, Nocturnal's relationship with followers takes a more subtle form. She offers no commandments, requires no temples, and seldom speaks directly. Instead, she influences through absence and presence, through shadow and spaces between moments. Documents describe Nocturnal as neither benevolent nor malevolent, but eternally self-interested. This characterization reflects the pragmatic nature of the relationship. Not devotion alone, but transactional arrangement where protection and prosperity are exchanged for service and tribute. The most tangible manifestation of Nocturnal's influence comes through her artifact, the skeleton key. Unlike other Daedric artifacts that primarily serve as weapons, the skeleton key embodies the thief's ideal: access, opportunity, and potential. Histories describe it not merely as a lockpick, but the concept of unlocking made manifest. The key can open any conventional lock, but its true power extends beyond physical barriers. Possessors speak of unlocking hidden talents within themselves, of mental barriers falling away like poorly made locks. Its significance to mythology cannot be overstated, with stories telling of legendary masters who temporarily possessed the artifact during times of great achievement. Despite accounts of temporary possession, records consistently maintain that the skeleton key's true home is the Twilight Sepulchre. This ancient temple, hidden among Skyrim's pine forests, serves as the physical nexus between Nocturnal's realm and Mundus. At its heart lies the Ebonmere, described as a well of shadow that never runs dry, the source from which all fortune flows. The Ebonmere's connection to prosperity represents one of the organization's most closely guarded secrets. According to recovered journals, when the Ebonmere stands open, Nocturnal's influence seeps into the world, creating conditions necessary for thieves to prosper. Shadows deepen, guards grow drowsy, locks become less resistant. When the connection weakens, members across Tamriel report increased difficulties and inexplicable failures. This metaphysical relationship explains extraordinary measures taken to protect the Twilight Sepulchre throughout history. Responsibility falls to the Nightingales, perhaps the most misunderstood element of structure. Far from mere myth, the Nightingales constitute a real and vital component of hierarchy, operating as spiritual guardians and ultimate insurance against internal betrayal. The Nightingales' origins trace back to early days of expansion beyond Cyrodiil. As the organization grew, leaders recognized need for an inner circle that could maintain spiritual foundation while addressing threats too sensitive for regular members. The first documented triad formed during the late Second Era, consisting of the Grey Fox himself and two other masters whose skills complemented his own. The structure established by this original triad persists to the modern era. Always three Nightingales, representing the aspects of Agent, Sentinel, and Key. The Agent serves as Nocturnal's hand in the world, actively intervening when necessary. The Sentinel stands as guardian of the Twilight Sepulchre and Ebonmere. The Key maintains internal security, identifying and neutralizing threats from within and without. Initiation into the Nightingales involves more than promotion or skill recognition. It requires formal pact with Nocturnal herself, conducted within the inner sanctum of the Twilight Sepulchre. Core elements remain consistent. The nightingale pledges to protect the sepulchre during life and serve nocturnal in Evergloam after death, guarding the ebon mere before eventually being released to whatever afterlife would otherwise claim them. This afterlife service explains why membership remains so limited and selective. Only those willing to postpone their journey to Sovngarde, Far Shores, or other appropriate afterlife realms would accept such terms. Those who do accept typically possess exceptional devotion, viewing extended service as worthy sacrifice for an organization that provided purpose and identity in life. The Nightingale's equipment reflects their unique status. Their distinctive armor, crafted from materials treated with alchemical compounds found only in the Twilight Sepulchre, absorbs light rather than merely being dark. Enchantments woven into fabric enhance natural talents while providing protection against detection, both magical and mundane. Most significantly, the armor includes a specially made cowl that obscures the wearer's identity through shadow magic and illusion effects, allowing nightingales to operate anonymously, even among fellow members. Throughout the Third Era, they intervened at crucial moments, though their actions often went unrecognized by rank and file. The relationship between nightingales and regular leadership has not always been harmonious. In provinces where chapters developed distinct local traditions, masters occasionally resented interventions as unwelcome interference. The infamous Shadow War began when a guildmaster refused to acknowledge Nightingale authority, leading to conflict that nearly exposed both factions before compromise was reached. Despite occasional tensions, the Nightingale's role in preserving spiritual foundation proved essential to longevity. While other criminal organizations rose and fell with changing political circumstances, the organization maintained consistent presence across Tamriel, weathering wars, plagues, and dynastic changes through Nightingale's stewardship of the relationship with Nocturnal. The Ebon Mere itself represents one of Tamriel's most unusual metaphysical phenomena. Unlike typical Daedric portals that connect directly to Oblivion realms and allow physical passage, the Ebon Mere functions as a conduit for Nocturnal's influence, rather than doorway for travel. Records describe it as liquid shadow contained within a circular stone basin at the Twilight Sepulchre's heart. When functioning properly, the surface ripples with patterns reminiscent of constellations, particularly the Fief sign, which appears most prominently during Nocturnal's summoning day. The Ebon Mere's influence extends through shadow channels, metaphysical connections linking all places of darkness throughout Tamriel. Through these channels, Nocturnal's luck and shadow flow outward, touching every operation, every pickpocketed coin, every silently opened lock. Maintaining the Ebonmere requires more than physical protection. The connection must be periodically renewed through ritual and tribute. Nightingales traditionally offer valuable stolen items to Nocturnal through the Ebonmere, symbolically returning a portion of what her influence helped acquire. These offerings disappear into shadowy depths, apparently transported directly to Evergloam. The most significant ritual occurs during Evening Star's new moon, when darkness reaches its yearly peak and the barrier between Mundus and oblivion grows thinnest. Evergloam itself remains largely unknown to most members, with detailed descriptions existing only in Nightingale journals. These accounts describe a realm of perpetual twilight, where shadows move independently and starlight falls like gentle rain from a sky without sun. The name Grey Fox echoes through Cyrodiil's history like a whispered legend, a figure whose identity remained concealed not merely by cunning, but by arcane properties of Nocturnal's cowl itself. Imperial records document numerous sightings and exploits, though accounts often contradict one another, describing the fox as tall and short, old and young, male and female, sometimes appearing in different cities the same day. This confusion lies in the cowl of Nocturnal, perhaps the most peculiar Daedric artifact associated with the organization. Unlike the skeleton key, which opens physical locks, the cowl's power operates on perception and memory. Those who viewed someone wearing the cowl could not retain the wearer's identity in memory, nor connect their actions to their unmasked persona. Even written records would mysteriously omit or alter identifying details. This magical anonymity allowed successive grey foxes to operate with impunity, their true identities protected by more than mere secrecy. According to fragmentary accounts, Nocturnal herself was robbed by a master thief whose name has been lost. Impressed by audacity, but angered by theft, Nocturnal cursed the cowl so that its wearer's identity would be forever forgotten. Punishment that inadvertently created the perfect tool for leadership. By the time of the Oblivion Crisis, the Grey Fox had become both supreme leader and greatest mystery. Imperial Watch reports show increasing frustration with activities, particularly high-profile heists targeting Legion officers and Thalmor diplomats. Captain Hieronymus Lex became especially obsessed with capture, dedicating resources beyond what would be reasonable for a mere thief. This fixation eventually led to Lex's reassignment to Anvil, a move widely believed engineered through connections in the Elder Council. The structure in Cyrodiil during this period reflected its status as the organization's heart. Unlike more condensed operations in other provinces, the Cyrodiilic branch maintained a distributed network centered on the Imperial City, but extending to every major settlement. The waterfront district headquarters served as the nerve center, though its unassuming exterior gave no hint of significance. The building's basement contained meeting areas, planning rooms, and the Grey Fox's private quarters, accessible only through hidden entrances that change location monthly. This central headquarters coordinated activities throughout the province. Each city maintained its own presence, typically disguised as legitimate businesses or hidden within existing establishments. In Baffle, operations ran from back rooms of the Lonely Suitor Lodge. Cheydinhall's chapter worked from basements beneath abandoned houses. Coral thieves used connected attics above the commercial district. These dispersed locations provided redundancy. If one was compromised, others could continue unaffected. The hierarchy followed structure more complex than other provinces. At the top stood the Grey Fox, whose identity remained unknown, even to most high-ranking members. Below served a council of Doyen, senior thieves who managed operations in specific cities or specialized in particular theft types. Each Doyen controlled their own network of regular members and informants, creating compartmentalized systems where few knew more than immediate superiors and subordinates. This compartmentalization served as both strength and weakness. It protected the organization from infiltration, as captured members could reveal only limited information. However, it also created coordination challenges and occasional territorial disputes between Doyens. The Grey Fox served as final arbiter, maintaining unity through charisma, strategic vision, and when necessary, carefully applied intimidation. One of the most valuable assets was the network of fences, merchants willing to purchase stolen goods without questions. Unlike common criminals selling stolen items at fraction of value, these fences offered fair prices while laundering goods through legitimate businesses. The network extended throughout the province, with each major city containing at least one reliable fence. The most prominent operated businesses providing natural cover. Adarji specialized in Nordic imports. Darji and Luciana managed warehouses near docks, while others maintained vineyards where stolen goods changed hands along with wine shipments. These fences not only purchased items, but provided valuable information about potential targets and market conditions. The relationship operated on strict protocols. Members received specific introduction phrases that changed quarterly to prevent imposters. Fences kept detailed, coded records tracking both goods purchased and commissions paid, typically 20% of transaction value. This commission provided the primary income stream, funding everything from bribes to equipment to support for members who fell on hard times. Beyond internal structure, the Cyrodiil branch maintained complex relationships with other institutions. Perhaps the most fraught was ongoing rivalry with the Fighters Guild, antagonism that frequently erupted into direct conflict during the Oblivion Crisis. Tension stemmed partly from philosophical differences, straightforward approach versus subtlety, and partly from practical competition for contracts and influence. This rivalry manifested most visibly in the notorious Anvil incident, when the local Fighters Guild chapter accused thieves of stealing enchanted weapons from their armory. The subsequent investigation led to escalating retaliations until evidence emerged suggesting a third party had orchestrated the original theft specifically to pit organizations against each other. The relationship with the Imperial Watch proved even more complicated. Unlike provincial guards who might be bribed or intimidated, the Watch operated under strict Imperial oversight, with standardized procedures and regular rotations preventing corruption. This professionalism made them formidable opponents, particularly in the Imperial City, where patrols operated around the clock. Rather than attempting to bribe the entire Watch, an impossible task given its size and structure, the organization adopted targeted infiltration. Select members with clean records joined as legitimate recruits, rising through ranks to positions where they could influence patrol schedules or investigation priorities. Others cultivated relationships with specific officers, providing useful information about violent criminals in exchange for leniency toward operations. This approach created delicate balance where the Watch maintained appearance of diligently pursuing all criminals while actually focusing resources on those posing greater threats to public safety. Watch captains could report successful arrests of murderers and armed robbers, meeting performance requirements while quietly allowing less violent thieves to operate within boundaries. The exception came when particular officers developed personal vendettas. Captain Lex's obsession exemplified this phenomenon. Despite pressure from superiors to focus on more pressing matters during the Oblivion Crisis, Lex dedicated significant resources to investigations, forcing the organization to employ extraordinary measures to neutralize him through professional discrediting rather than violence. Operations throughout Cyrodiil focused primarily on high-value targets with minimal risk. Unlike common bandits who might attack travelers on roads, specialists infiltrated secured locations, identifying valuable items through advanced intelligence and extracting them without confrontation. This approach required extensive preparation, with some operations involving weeks of surveillance, detailed floor plans, and identification of guard rotations. One of the most lucrative specialties was document forgery, a natural extension of imperial bureaucracy's reliance on written authorization. Forgers could produce convincing replicas of almost any official document, from imperial writs to noble house seals. These forgeries facilitated not just theft, but confidence schemes, allowing thieves to impersonate officials, redirect shipments, or access restricted areas under false pretenses. The organization maintained dedicated facilities for document forgery in secret locations beneath the Imperial City's market district. master forgers trained apprentices in paper aging, seal reproduction, and handwriting mimicry. The workshop contained paper samples from every major mill in Tamriel, allowing forgers to match exact composition of official documents. Specialized enchantments prevented magical detection, making forgeries virtually indistinguishable from genuine articles. During the Oblivion Crisis, operations adapted to changing circumstances while capitalizing on new opportunities. As Daedric incursions disrupted normal security patterns and drew guards from usual posts, members conducted daring heists of locations normally too well protected to target. Simultaneously, the organization provided valuable intelligence to the Blades and Legion about Daedric movements in urban areas through networks of lookouts and informants monitoring city streets. This indirect contribution to crisis response earned a measure of tolerance from authorities in aftermath. While never officially acknowledged, information provided by members helped evacuate civilians ahead of attacks and identified weaknesses in city defences before they could be exploited. Count Hasseldor of Skingrad reportedly maintained regular communication with the local chapter throughout the crisis. A Cyrodiil branch's approach to recruitment focused on quality over quantity. Rather than accepting any willing fief, Doyens identified promising candidates through observation, noting individuals demonstrating natural talent for stealth, lockpicking, or persuasion. These prospects received subtle tests, planted coin purses, or locked cabinets containing tempting but not valuable items. Those passing initial tests received anonymous invitations with directions to meeting locations. At first meetings, representatives explained basic principles and advantages of membership, while emphasizing strict prohibition against killing. Candidates accepting these terms began probationary periods, handling minor jobs under supervision before gaining full membership and access to facilities. The Cyrodiil branch's endurance through the turbulent late Third Era testifies to effectiveness of its organizational model and wisdom of fundamental principles. By maintaining discipline, avoiding unnecessary violence, and adapting to changing circumstances, the organization weathered political upheavals and Daedric invasions that destroyed less resilient institutions. Ascending slippery stone steps into Riften's Ratway immediately explains why Skyrim's branch chose such inhospitable location for headquarters. The labyrinthine tunnels beneath the city serve as both protection and filter. Those lacking skill or determination to navigate the maze of passages, traps, and desperate vagrants rarely reach the inner sanctum. At the heart of this underground complex lies the Ragged Flagon, a tavern serving as the public face of operations. Unlike hidden halls of Cyrodiil, the Flagon makes no pretense about its clientele. Warning glances from patrons and suspicious gaze of Vekel the man immediately signal this is no ordinary drinking establishment. Beyond the Flagon, accessible only through a false cabinet in the storage room, lies the cistern, true headquarters of Skyrim's branch. This vast circular chamber, built around a central pool fed by underwater channels from Lake Honrick, houses essential operations. Beds line perimeter walls, offering members permanent residence safe from guard patrols. Training areas for lockpicking and pickpocketing allow newer members to hone skills under expert supervision. This represents one of the most significant chapters in organizational history. By the beginning of the Fourth Era, the Skyrim branch had fallen from former glory into near collapse. The causes were numerous and interconnected. Chaos following the Oblivion Crisis disrupted established criminal networks throughout Tamriel. The Red Year, when Red Mountain's eruption devastated Morrowind, severed important connections between branches. However, these external factors merely exacerbated internal problems developing for decades. Under Guildmaster Gallus Desidenius, the Skyrim branch maintained prosperity and influence throughout major holds. His murder, orchestrated by trusted second-in-command Mercer Frey, marked the beginning of steep decline. Frey's assumption of leadership should have ensured continuity, but his style departed significantly from established principles. Where Gallus had cultivated relationships with influential figures throughout Skyrim, maintaining networks of allies and informants, Mercer focused almost exclusively on immediate profit. He neglected maintenance of fence networks in outlying holds, allowing crucial connections to wither. Protection arrangements with merchants lapsed without renewal. Perhaps most damagingly, Mercer's embezzlement from the treasury gradually drained financial reserves, leaving the organization unable to weather difficult periods or invest in promising opportunities. The spiritual dimension proved equally significant. Unknown to most members, Mercer's betrayal extended beyond mere theft and murder. As one of the Nightingales sworn to protect the Twilight Sepulchre and maintain connection to Nocturnal, his actions constituted a direct breach of the organization's metaphysical foundation. His theft of the skeleton key from the sepulchre and abandonment of Nightingale duties severed the flow of luck that had sustained operations for centuries. Members experienced increased failure rates, more frequent arrests, and general sense that fortune had turned against them. Though they remained ignorant of the cause, by 4E201, when the individual, later known as the Dragonborn, first encountered the organization, membership had dwindled to a handful, operating almost exclusively within Riften's borders. The once extensive network throughout Skyrim's 9 holds had contracted to occasional jobs in Whiterun and Windhelm, with other major cities essentially abandoned as territory. Grinjolf, Mercer's second-in-command during this period, recognized the dire situation, but misdiagnosed its cause. believing the organization simply needed new blood and fresh talent. He recruited promising thieves when opportunity presented. His approach to recruiting the future Dragonborn, having them frame an innocent merchant in Riften's marketplace, exemplified both desperation and deviation from traditional methods. The specialized roles within Skyrim's branch during this period reflected both traditional structure and adaptations to local Nordic culture. Fences like Tamriel provided essential service of converting stolen goods into usable currency, maintaining connections with legitimate merchants who asked no questions about item origins. Trainers represented another traditional role, persisting even during decline. Delvin Mallory's expertise in sneaking and lockpicking made him valuable for newer members developing skills. Vex, despite relatively young age, had mastered infiltration, earning recognition as premier second-story specialist. Nirowin brought Bosmer archery traditions, adapting them for urban environments where silent ranged attacks might create distractions. The distribution of jobs followed structured approach centered on the ragged flagon. Delvin and Vex maintained lists of potential targets and clients seeking specific items, assigning opportunities to members based on skills and experience. This system ensured jobs matched capabilities, reducing risk of failure or capture, while providing mechanism for monitoring member activities. Types of jobs fell into several categories, each requiring different skills and approaches. Bedlam jobs involved stealing specified values of goods from particular holds, testing thieves' ability to identify valuable targets opportunistically. Phishing assignments required pickpocketing specific items from designated marks. Numbers jobs targeted business ledgers for modification, reducing tax burdens for merchants willing to pay for service. Beyond standard assignments, the organization occasionally undertook special jobs with higher risks and rewards. The theft of Madesi's silver ring and its planting on Brand Shay served multiple purposes, testing recruit skills while eliminating a merchant problematic for aligned businesses. The infiltration of Golden Glow estate targeted a client who had attempted to break agreement with Maven Blackbriar. The relationship between the organization and Maven Blackbriar exemplifies complex interdependence between criminal organizations and legitimate power structures in Skyrim. As owner of Blackbriar Meadery and numerous other businesses throughout the Rift, Maven possessed wealth, influence, and political connections, making her formidable ally and dangerous enemy. The organization provided services she required, intimidating competitors, sabotaging rival businesses, and occasionally eliminating obstacles to ambitions. In return, she offered protection from guard investigations, access to lucrative opportunities, and weight of influence when facing challenges. This arrangement represented both strength and vulnerability. Maven's support ensured survival during the most difficult period, but dependence compromised autonomy. Other influential figures maintained less formal but significant relationships. Erica, in solitude, occasionally employed members for delicate matters requiring discretion. Clan Shattershield in Windhelm utilized thieves to gather information on competing businesses. These connections, while valuable, lacked depth and reliability of the Maven relationship, functioning as transactional arrangements rather than true alliances. The organization's resurgence began with investigation into Golden Glow Estate, revealing first hints of external force working against both Maven's interests and operations. Discovery of an unusual symbol on correspondence pointed toward coordinated effort to undermine the organization's position in Skyrim. This revelation shifted narrative from simple decline to active sabotage, galvanizing remaining members around common enemy. Subsequent investigation led to Honning Brew Meadery near Whiterun, where similar evidence confirmed the pattern. The individual orchestrating these moves, eventually identified as Carlia, a former member believed to have murdered Gallus, had systematically targeted relationships with influential patrons, attempting to isolate the organization and destroy remaining support network. The truth, when finally revealed through Gallus's translated journal and Carlia's testimony, transformed understanding of the situation. Mercer Frey, not Carlia, had murdered Gallus and betrayed the Nightingales. His theft of the skeleton key from the Twilight Sepulchre had severed connection to Nocturnal, explaining the run of misfortune plaguing operations for decades. This revelation connected practical and spiritual dimensions of decline, providing clear path toward restoration. Recover the skeleton key, restore it to the sepulchre, and re-establish the Nightingale Trinity. The pursuit of Mercer Frey through Dwemer ruins of Erkinfan represented more than simple revenge or justice. It constituted reclamation of fundamental principles: honor among thieves, adherence to code, and respect for spiritual foundation supporting activities. The restoration of the skeleton key to the Twilight Sepulchre marked the beginning of resurgence throughout Skyrim, with Nocturnal's influence flowing once again through shadow channels. Members experienced return of luck that had abandoned them. Operations succeeded more frequently. Guards seemed less attentive, and opportunities multiplied across the province. Under new leadership, the organization rapidly re-established presence in major holds beyond Riften. Small influence operations targeting key businesses created footholds in cities like Whiterun, Markarth, and Solitude. Recruitment of new members accelerated, with standards rising as reputation for success spread through criminal circles. The branch of Morrowind presents stark contrast to counterparts in other provinces, shaped by unique cultural and political landscape of Dunmer society. Unlike centralized operations in Cyrodiil or consolidated headquarters in Skyrim, the Vardenfell branch operated as loosely connected network of corner clubs and trading houses, each maintaining independence while acknowledging authority of provincial leadership. The Southwall Corner Club in Balmora served as unofficial heart of operations during the late Third Era. Nestled in the city's labour town on the eastern bank of the Odai River, this unassuming two-storey structure blended seamlessly with surrounding Halalu architecture. Its weathered exterior of adobe and stone gave no indication of significance to the island's criminal ecosystem. Inside, the Corner Club maintained appearance of typical Dunmer Tavern. Smoky main room dominated by central bar, with private alcoves along walls where patrons could conduct business away from prying eyes. The proprietor served as key intelligence gatherer, monitoring information flow through Balmora, collecting rumours from merchants, travellers, and off-duty house guards that might reveal profitable opportunities or potential threats. Behind public areas, concealed rooms housed fencing operations, storage for stolen goods, and sleeping quarters for members needing temporary sanctuary. What distinguished the South Wall was its second-floor office, domain of Habasi, a Khajiit who held the title of Master Thief and effectively governed operations throughout the Balmora region. Her presence exemplified another distinctive aspect of Morrowind's branch, the prominent role of non-Dunmer members in leadership positions. While native Dunmer dominated most aspects of Vardenfell society, the organisation provided advancement opportunities for outlanders with exceptional skills, regardless of racial background. Similar outposts existed in other major settlements across Vardenfell. In Alderen, the Council Club provided cover for activities in shadow of Redoran authority. Sadrith Mora's Dirty Muriel's Corner Club served as both gathering place and information exchange for thieves operating in Telvanni territory. Each establishment maintained its own specialty and territorial focus, while recognising overall authority of Gentleman Jim Stacey, who directed operations from headquarters in Vivek City's foreign quarter. Stacey's leadership style emphasised autonomy for local chapters, allowing them to adapt to specific challenges and opportunities of their regions, while ensuring adherence to core principles. This decentralised structure evolved as response to Morrowind's fragmented power landscape. Unlike imperial territories with standardised laws and enforcement, Vardenfell operated under overlapping jurisdictions, where Great House territories, temple lands, imperial administrative districts, and native Ashlander tribal areas each maintained their own approaches to justice and property rights. In House Lalu regions, operations focused on mercantile theft and document forgery, exploiting the house's emphasis on trade and relatively cosmopolitan attitude. Redoran territories required more careful approaches, as the house's warrior ethos and strict honour code meant harsher punishments for captured thieves. Telvanni areas presented unique challenges and opportunities. The wizard lords cared little about petty theft, but protected magical artifacts with deadly wards and summoned guardians that conventional stealth techniques couldn't bypass. The membership reflected Vardenfell's diverse population during the late Third Era. Native Dunmer, particularly those from lower social strata or disaffected from great house politics, formed the largest contingent. Khajiit brought traditional skills in stealth and acrobatics, often specializing in second-story work requiring scaling Vardenfell's vertical architecture. Argonians, with their ability to breathe underwater, became invaluable for operations involving the island's numerous waterways and coastal smuggling routes. What truly distinguished Morrowind's branch from counterparts elsewhere was involvement in anti-slavery activism, a dimension entirely absent from operations in provinces where slavery had been abolished. The Morrowind branch maintained close ties with the Twin Lamps, an underground movement dedicated to freeing slaves and smuggling them to safety beyond provincial borders. This connection originated from practical rather than ideological considerations. The organization's extensive smuggling networks, established to move stolen goods between cities and provinces, provided perfect cover for transporting escaped slaves. Safe houses, maintained for members on the run, could shelter Argonians and Khajiit fleeing bondage. The expertise in forging documents proved invaluable for creating false papers, allowing former slaves to pass imperial checkpoints without arousing suspicion. Over time, however, this practical relationship developed deeper roots. Many members, particularly non-Dunmer, who had experienced discrimination under native rule, developed genuine sympathy for the Twin Lamps' cause. Some committed significant resources to liberation efforts. Even members without strong ideological motivations recognized that undermining the slave trade weakened House Telvanni and conservative temple factions that competed with the organization for influence. The Twin Lamps operated with even greater secrecy than the organization itself. Members identified one another through coded phrases and subtle gestures, with full membership lists known only to regional coordinators. The organization maintained series of safe houses throughout Vardenfell and the mainland, often disguised as fishing shacks, pilgrim shelters, or abandoned mines. This anti-slavery work brought the organization into direct conflict with the Kimona Tong, Morrowind's native criminal syndicate. Unlike the thieves with their prohibition against killing and relatively cosmopolitan membership, the Tong operated with brutal efficiency and maintained strictly Dunmer membership policy. The organization had deep connections to the slave trade, providing muscle for slave hunters and profiting from transportation of captives between markets. The rivalry transcended ordinary criminal competition. The Tong viewed the organization as foreign interlopers, threatening traditional Dunmer practices and profit streams. Their leadership advocated for complete expulsion of outlanders from Morrowind and return to traditional Great House autonomy without imperial oversight. The organization, with its diverse membership and connections to imperial networks represented everything the Tong opposed. This ideological dimension transformed routine territorial disputes into something more dangerous. Where operations in other provinces might involve non-lethal competition with rival thieves, Vardenfell's members faced opponents who considered murder standard business practice. Tong enforcers targeted members for assassination rather than mere intimidation, forcing the organization to develop defensive measures that balanced security against their prohibition on killing. Gentleman Jim Stacy's leadership proved crucial during this period of escalating conflict. A former Imperial Legionnaire who had deserted after witnessing atrocities committed against civilians, Stacy brought military strategic thinking to operations. He established counter-intelligence networks to identify Tong infiltrators, developed early warning systems to alert members about enforcement sweeps, and maintained communication channels with sympathetic House Halalu members who could provide political protection when necessary. Stacy's most significant innovation was development of deniable operations, carefully structured missions designed to undermine Tong interests without directly implicating the organization. Rather than stealing from Tong-affiliated businesses directly, members might provide information to Imperial Customs officials about smuggling operations. Instead of confronting Tong enforcers, they would manipulate rivalries between great houses to bring official scrutiny to Tong activities. The organization's headquarters in Vivek City exemplified this strategic approach. Rather than establishing single identifiable location that could be targeted by enemies, Stacy distributed operations across multiple sites throughout the Foreign Quarter Canton. The Lizard's Head Tavern served as public meeting place where initial contacts occurred. A nondescript apartment in the Canal Works housed document forgery operations. The Black Shark Corner Club provided location for fencing higher value items. By separating these functions, Stacy ensured that no single raid could cripple operations in the city. The Foreign Quarter's multicultural environment provided perfect cover for activities, with merchants, pilgrims, and adventurers from across Tamriel constantly moving through the canton. Members could operate without attracting attention they might receive in more homogeneous Dunmer districts. The Iliac Bay region represents one of the most complex environments for operations in all of Tamriel. Straddling the border between High Rock and Hammerfell, this densely populated coastal area features dozens of independent city-states, principalities and baronies, each with own laws, guard forces and political entanglements. During the late Third Era, particularly around the time of the Warp in the West, the organization maintained uniquely fragmented structure, mirroring the political landscape. In High Rock, operations functioned not as unified provincial branch, but as confederation of semi-autonomous chapters, each aligned with specific city-state. The Wayrest chapter, perhaps most sophisticated of these operations, maintained headquarters beneath the city's bustling marketplace, a network of repurposed sewers and abandoned stores. Members in Wayrest specialized in what they called aristocratic acquisition, targeted theft of valuable heirlooms, documents, and jewelry from the city's numerous noble houses. Daggerfall's presence took different approach, embedding itself within the city's merchant class, rather than operating from hidden locations. The organization maintained ownership of several legitimate businesses: shipping office near the harbor, pawn shop in commercial district, and high-end clothier catering to nobility. Each served as both front for illegal activities and source of intelligence about potential targets. Sentinel, straddling the cultural divide between High Rock and Hammerfell, housed a chapter that specialized in exploiting the city's position as trade hub. Rather than focusing on burglary or pickpocketing, Sentinel's thieves excelled at cargo manipulation, altering shipping manifests, redirecting deliveries, and skimming valuable goods from warehouses. The chapter maintained a network of informants throughout the harbour district, who provided advance notice of particularly valuable shipments. What made the Iliac Bay branches unique was their relationship with the complex political landscape. Unlike imperial provinces with centralized governance, High Rock's city-states engaged in constant political maneuvering, forming and breaking alliances with dizzying frequency. The chapters exploited this fragmentation by offering specialized services to ruling families of each territory. Not just theft, but espionage, blackmail, and recovery of compromising documents from rival courts. This political entanglement reached its peak during years leading up to the warp in the West, as tensions between major powers intensified. Demand for services increased dramatically. Noble houses commissioned thefts of strategic information from rivals. Merchant consortiums hired members to sabotage competitors' operations. Even religious organizations engaged services to recover relics or documents that could strengthen their position in theological disputes. The organization's relationship with the Blades during this period deserves particular attention, as the Emperor's intelligence service worked to track the totem of Tiber Septim and other Numidium components. They frequently employed members as deniable assets for operations requiring plausible deniability. These collaborations provided valuable protection from imperial authorities and access to information about regional politics that helped navigate the treacherous landscape of competing powers. The warp in the West itself had profound effects on operations throughout the region. In aftermath, many smaller principalities and baronies disappeared entirely, absorbed into expanded territories of major kingdoms. Chapters that had operated in these minor states found themselves suddenly in new jurisdictions, forced to adapt to different legal systems and power structures overnight. This consolidation ultimately strengthened the organization's position in the region. With fewer independent jurisdictions to navigate, operations could be standardized, and resources devoted to managing relationships with local authorities reduced. The expanded kingdoms also created larger markets for stolen goods, allowing more efficient movement of merchandise through fewer fencing operations. In Hammerfell, presence extended beyond Sentinel to include significant operations in Tanith, Rehad, and most notably, Abar's Landing. This last location represented a unique chapter during the Second Era, particularly around 2E582, during the Interregnum period. Unlike politically entangled chapters of High Rock, the Abar's Landing branch operated as purely profit-driven enterprise, under leadership of Nicholas, a Breton who established what he called Nicholas divided operations into distinct specialties. The tippers gathered intelligence about potential targets. The walkers handled breaking and entering. The dealers managed distractions and cover operations, while the cleaners laundered stolen goods through legitimate businesses. This specialized approach allowed targeting even the most secure locations in the city, including heavily guarded merchant manors of the wealthy district. The headquarters reflected this systematic approach. Hidden beneath unassuming warehouse in the city's harbour district, the headquarters featured dedicated spaces for each operational specialty. Training rooms for pickpockets, workshops for practicing lockpicking, and planning chambers where detailed models of target buildings allowed for precise operation development. Most impressive was the vault, where the organization stored not just accumulated wealth, but comprehensive archive of city maps, building plans, and dossiers on prominent citizens. The Abar's Landing branch's prosperity eventually attracted unwanted attention from powerful enemy, the Iron Wheel. This mercenary organization, founded by former bailiffs of Tanith, specialized in hunting down criminals who had escaped conventional justice. Unlike typical city guards or even imperial legionnaires, the Iron Wheel operated across jurisdictional boundaries with single-minded focus on their targets. Their pursuit began after high-profile heist targeting merchant lord Kosh, whose connections to Tanith nobility prompted him to hire the wheel for retribution rather than relying on local authorities. The conflict came to head during what became known as the Abar's Landing crisis of 2E582. Led by Chief Inspector Ranbik, Iron Wheel forces launched devastating raid on headquarters, capturing or killing many members and forcing survivors into hiding. This assault nearly destroyed the operation entirely, leaving only a handful of members free to continue activities. The organization's restoration under these circumstances required different approach than the structured system Nicholas had established. Zera, one of few senior members to escape the raid, recognized that the organization needed to become more adaptable and less centralized to survive under Iron Wheel scrutiny. She established smaller independent cells throughout the city, each capable of operating autonomously if others were compromised. Communication between cells occurred through dead drops and coded messages rather than direct meetings, making it harder for the iron wheel to track activities. This decentralized approach proved effective against the iron wheel's systematic investigation methods. The weathered lockpick turns gently between practiced fingers, its worn metal reflecting decades of accumulated wisdom passed from master to apprentice. Unlike swords of warriors or staves of mages, a thief's tools represent not just implements of craft, but extensions of very identity. Subtle instruments that separate the professional from the opportunist, the member from the common cutpurse. Lock-picking stands as the quintessential skill of any competent thief. And evolution of lock-picking tools mirrors the organization's own development, from scattered bands to sophisticated network. The most basic lockpick set consists of two essential components: the pick itself and the tension wrench. Apprentices typically begin with crude implements, picks fashioned from bent metal stays or sharpened bone, tension wrenches made from flattened iron strips. These rudimentary tools suffice for simple locks found in peasant homes or roadside inns, but quickly prove inadequate against more sophisticated mechanisms. Advanced members graduate to specialized pick sets, often custom crafted by dedicated artisans within the organization. The Skingrad chapter maintains particularly renowned locksmith, who produces sets with picks of varying thickness and flexibility, each designed for specific lock types. Dwemer locks, with their intricate internal mechanisms, require picks of exceptional precision and durability, often crafted from mixture of steel and quicksilver to provide both strength and malleability. Nordic puzzle locks, common throughout Skyrim, demand picks with unique hooked ends, capable of manipulating their rotating tumblers. The most coveted lockpicking tool in Tamriel transcends mere craftsmanship. The accounts from the few documented possessors describe its operation in almost mystical terms. Unlike conventional tools requiring skill and technique, the skeleton key responds to its user's intentions almost intuitively, aligning internal mechanisms through means that seem to bypass physical limitations entirely. Beyond its practical function, the key holds deeper significance within mythology as symbol of the covenant between thieves and their patron. For most operations, conventional lockpicks remain standard. Members typically carry multiple sets concealed throughout their equipment. Picks sewn into clothing seams, hidden in hollow boot heels, or disguised as jewelry components. This redundancy ensures that even if searched by guards, a competent thief retains means to escape confinement. While lockpicks address mechanical security, members face numerous other obstacles requiring specialized equipment. The blackjack, a leather sap filled with lead shot or sand, provides non-lethal means of neutralizing guards or witnesses. Unlike weapons designed to kill, The blackjack allows thieves to render obstacles unconscious without violating prohibition against murder. Proper use requires precise knowledge of human anatomy. Striking wrong location could result in accidental death or insufficient incapacitation, both unacceptable outcomes for professional operations. The Bravil chapter developed particularly effective blackjack variant during late Third Era by incorporating small reservoir of diluted sleeping potion into striking surface, ensuring targets remained unconscious longer while requiring less force in initial blow. For accessing upper story windows or crossing rooftops, the organization employs various climbing tools that have evolved significantly over centuries. The most basic implement, rope and grapple, has remained largely unchanged since First Era. 3- or 4-pronged hook attached to lightweight, high-strength rope. Members learn to throw these hooks with minimal noise, securing them to rooftop eaves or window ledges before ascending. More sophisticated operations employ specialized climbing claws, metal devices strapped to hands and feet that provide additional grip on stone surfaces. The Sentinel chapter, operating among smooth sandstone buildings of Hammerfell, developed particularly effective claws with adjustable tips that could be customized for different wall textures. The most advanced climbing technology comes from the Solitude branch, whose members must navigate the city's distinctive high-arched architecture. Their climbing harnesses incorporate Dwemer-inspired mechanical ascenders that grip rope automatically when weighted, allowing for faster, more efficient climbing with reduced physical exertion. For penetrating glass windows without alerting occupants, members employ glass cutters of varying sophistication. The basic tool consists of sharp diamond or adamantine point mounted in handle, used to score circle in glass before carefully removing cut section. More advanced versions, developed in High Rock, incorporate small suction devices that hold cut glass in place as it's separated from window, preventing it from falling inward and creating noise. The organization's approach to armor reflects unique operational requirements. Unlike warriors who prioritize maximum protection, thieves need equipment that balances defense with mobility and silence. Standard armor throughout most provinces consists of supple leather treated with specialized compounds to minimize noise. The tanning process incorporates wax and oil mixtures that reduce leather's tendency to creak or squeak during movement. The most distinctive armor is unquestionably the Nightingale suit, reserved exclusively for the Trinity who serve as Nocturnal's direct agents. These suits represent pinnacle of thieving equipment. The material itself defies conventional analysis. Neither truly leather nor cloth, but something that seems to absorb light rather than merely being dark. Enchantments woven into fabric muffle sound beyond what any potion or spell could accomplish, while other effects enhance night vision and suppress wearers' body heat to avoid detection by magical means. Beyond physical tools, the organization makes extensive use of alchemical preparations that enhance capabilities or overcome specific obstacles. Invisibility potions represent perhaps most valuable of these concoctions, though their use requires considerable skill. The standard formula, derived from vampire dust and nirnroot, creates true invisibility rather than mere camouflage, but leaves equipment and stolen items visible, creating strange spectacle of objects floating through air if used carelessly. Water-walking elixirs provide essential support for thieves operating in coastal cities or riverfront properties. The standard formula, combining slaughterfish scales with salt piles, creates temporary effect, allowing users to traverse water surfaces without swimming. This capability proves invaluable for approaching targets from unexpected angles, as few estates maintain same level of security toward water approaches as they do toward land. Feather potions address one of fundamental challenges of profitable thievery: weight limitations of what person can physically carry. By temporarily reducing apparent weight of objects, these potions allow thieves to transport larger hauls without sacrificing mobility. The traditional recipe combines hawk feathers with snowberries, creating effect that typically lasts long enough to escape target location and reach secure drop point. Beyond alchemy, the organization employs magical methods that complement physical tools. Illusion magic proves particularly valuable, with spells from the school forming backbone of many sophisticated operations. The muffle spell serves as magical equivalent of specialized footwear, suppressing sound of movement entirely rather than merely reducing it. Chameleon effects represent more subtle approach than outright invisibility. Rather than rendering user completely unseen, chameleon spells and enchantments blend them into surroundings, making detection significantly more difficult without obvious magical signature of invisibility. The Imperial City branch favors this approach for operations in heavily guarded locations where magical detection might be in place. The Calm spell provides non-violent means of neutralizing potential witnesses or obstacles by magically suppressing aggressive impulses. This spell allows thieves to temporarily pacify guards or residents who become suspicious, creating opportunities to retreat or reposition without confrontation. Unlike Blackjack's physical approach, Calm leaves no evidence of tampering and no lingering injuries that might prompt investigation. For members without magical aptitude, enchanted equipment provides access to these effects without spell-casting ability. Rings of Night Eye allow operation in complete darkness without telltale torches or lanterns. Amulets of Silence create fields of magical quiet around wearer, suppressing not just their own noise, but sounds in immediate vicinity. The most sophisticated operations combine these tools and techniques in complementary ways. A typical high-security infiltration might begin with alchemical preparation, invisibility potions readied, feather potions consumed in anticipation of substantial haul. Specialized lockpicks address physical security, while muffle enchanted boots ensure silent movement. Blackjacks remain ready for unexpected encounters, while climbing claws provide escape options if primary routes become compromised. This integrated approach distinguishes operations from opportunistic theft, where common bandits might smash windows and grab whatever lies in reach. Members approach each job as puzzle, requiring specific tools and techniques. This methodical philosophy extends to tool maintenance as well. Picks regularly filed and adjusted, potion ingredients stockpiled during favorable seasons, enchanted items recharged before power diminishes at critical moments. Throughout Tamriel, operations rarely proceed without opposition, while guards and watchmen represent constant obstacle. Far more dangerous adversaries lurk in shadows. Rival criminal organizations, specialized law enforcement units, and vigilante groups dedicated to eradicating theft. Among these opponents, none proved more implacable or violent than the commoner Tong of Morrowind. Unlike the cosmopolitan organization with its prohibition against killing, the Tong operated a xenophobic criminal syndicate embracing violence as primary tool. Founded during Second Era as response to increasing imperial influence in Morrowind, the organization initially presented itself as protector of Dunmer traditions against foreign corruption. The conflict erupted into open hostility during late Third Era, when the organization established permanent operations in Vardenfell. Orvus Dren, the Tong's leader and brother to Duke Vedum Dren, viewed the presence as both economic threat and cultural insult. His organization had long monopolized protection rackets, smuggling operations, and slave trading throughout province. The Tong's first major action occurred when they massacred entire membership of small operation in Narcissus. Unlike typical criminal rivalries involving targeted assassinations or intimidation, the Tong slaughtered everyone present in the safe house, including associates and family members with no direct involvement. This brutality established pattern that would characterize the conflict. The Tong made no distinction between combatants and bystanders. This pattern of escalating violence forced adaptation of strategies that strained traditional principles. While maintaining prohibition against direct killing, Stacy authorized what he termed indirect neutralization of key Tong figures. Operatives began providing evidence of Tong crimes to imperial authorities, manipulating rival great houses into moving against Tong operations and arranging circumstances where Tong members would clash with buoyant armigers or other temple forces. Beyond criminal rivals, the organization faces opposition from specialized law enforcement units throughout Tamriel. Unlike standard guards or watchmen, these dedicated investigators possess resources authority, and expertise to present genuine threats to operations. Their methods vary by province, reflecting local legal traditions and available resources, but all share common focus on dismantling organized theft rather than merely responding to individual crimes. In Cyrodiil, the Imperial Watch maintains specialized division known informally as Shadow Watchers, investigators who focus exclusively on activities within Imperial City. These officers receive training in counter-thievery techniques, recognizing tradecraft, identifying fencing operations, and monitoring known associates without detection. Most significantly, they operate with jurisdiction throughout all city districts, bypassing territorial limitations that hamper regular watch patrols. Captain Hieronymus Lex's campaign against the Grey Fox during late Third Era exemplifies both potential and limitations of such specialized enforcement. Lex correctly identified operational patterns, established surveillance on suspected locations, and cultivated informants within Waterfront District. His efforts came closer to compromising the Cyrodiil branch than any previous law enforcement operation. Lex's ultimate failure stemmed not from tactical error, but from the organization's superior political connections. By leveraging relationships with corrupt officials in Elder Council, the Grey Fox arranged for Lex's transfer to Anvil, effectively removing him from investigation at its most promising stage. This outcome illustrates fundamental challenge facing law enforcement throughout Tamriel. The organization's influence extends into very power structures tasked with eliminating it. The organization's remarkable persistence across turbulent landscape of Tamrielic history stands as testament to its fundamental adaptability. Unlike rigid institutions that crumbled during political upheavals or magical catastrophes, the organization consistently evolved to meet changing circumstances while maintaining core identity. This adaptability manifests not merely as survival mechanism, but as sophisticated organizational philosophy permeating every aspect of operations across provincial boundaries. In Morrowind, the organization transformed itself from imperial import viewed with suspicion by native Dunmer into hybrid organization, incorporating elements of local culture while maintaining connections to broader network. Operatives learned to navigate complex social hierarchies of great house politics, developed techniques specific to Telvanni mushroom towers, and even adopted aspects of traditional Dunmer stealth practices. The Skyrim branch demonstrates similar adaptability in completely different context. Nordic culture, with its emphasis on direct confrontation and personal honor, initially seemed inhospitable to the organization's emphasis on subtlety and misdirection. Yet establishment occurred by focusing on aspects of Nord society that aligned with their approach, particularly tradition of cunning as valued attribute in Nordic folklore. Perhaps most impressively, the High Rock chapters navigated the province's notoriously complex political landscape by developing specialized services for each city-state's unique circumstances. In Wayrest, where merchant wealth dominated, specialization occurred in commercial intelligence and document forgery. In Daggerfall, with its ancient noble houses, expertise developed in blackmail and acquisition of politically sensitive information. This adaptability extends beyond cultural accommodation to include technological and magical innovation. When Dwemer security mechanisms began appearing in wealthy homes during late Third Era, countermeasures were quickly developed based on recovered Dwemer schematics. As detection spells became more sophisticated, alchemists created potions that temporarily suppressed magical signatures. The economic impact on Tamriel's broader commercial networks remains one of most underappreciated aspects of historical significance. Far from simply removing wealth from economy through theft, the organization functions as shadow redistribution system that influences markets in subtle but profound ways. At most basic level, the fence network represents parallel commercial infrastructure that moves goods through unconventional channels. These operations create secondary markets for luxury items, rare materials, and collector pieces that would otherwise remain locked in private vaults or noble estates. By returning these items to circulation, albeit through illegal means, the organization inadvertently increases market liquidity and prevents complete stagnation of wealth in upper-class holdings. This redistribution function becomes particularly significant during economic downturns or political crises. When conventional trade routes close due to war or natural disaster, smuggling networks often provide only means for certain goods to reach markets. During the Stormcloak Rebellion, operatives maintained supply lines for luxury goods between Solitude and Windhelm, despite official embargo. Perhaps most significantly, the organization serves as unconventional avenue for social mobility in Tamriel's rigidly stratified societies. Talented individuals from impoverished backgrounds who might otherwise find advancement impossible through legitimate channels can achieve substantial wealth and influence through membership. The careers of figures like Delvin Mallory, who rose from Riften's orphanage to become one of the wealthiest individuals in Skyrim, illustrate how alternative paths to prosperity are created outside traditional social structures. As Tamriel stands on the threshold of what scholars might eventually call the Fifth Era, the organization faces both unprecedented challenges and unique opportunities. Technological and magical innovations continue to transform security systems throughout continent, requiring constant adaptation of thieving techniques. Political realignments following the Skyrim Civil War and uncertain status of empire create unstable environment where traditional power structures and enforcement mechanisms face disruption. Several clear trends suggest likely evolution of operations in this emerging landscape. The increasing sophistication of magical security systems will likely accelerate incorporation of magical countermeasures into standard operations. The traditional thief, relying solely on mechanical skills, may give way to new archetype, combining conventional techniques with specialized magical knowledge. The organizational structure will likely continue evolution toward greater decentralization and compartmentalization. The successful resistance to iron wheel in a bar's landing demonstrated effectiveness of cell-based structures that can lose individual components without compromising the whole. Future operations may abandon central headquarters entirely in favor of distributed networks with no single point of failure. Technological innovations suggest another potential direction for thieving practices. Recent experiments with miniaturized automatons, some no larger than common rats, point toward possibilities for remote theft that eliminates physical presence entirely. Futurists have already begun exploring applications of these technologies, envisioning scenarios where mechanical prophecies infiltrate secured locations while operators remain safely distant. The economic function may shift as well, particularly if political instability continues to disrupt conventional trade. The smuggling and alternative distribution networks could become increasingly important for maintaining economic connections between regions with hostile political relationships. This evolution would position the organization not merely as criminal enterprise, but as unofficial parallel economy operating in spaces where legitimate commerce cannot function. Perhaps most intriguingly, the relationship with political power structures shows signs of formalization in certain regions. In High Rock particularly, the long-standing practice of nobles employing services for deniable operations has begun evolving into more structured arrangements resembling official contracts. Some theorists suggest this trend could eventually lead to form of legitimization, not of theft itself, but of intelligence gathering and security testing functions. The spiritual dimension of the future remains closely tied to relationship with Nocturnal. The restoration of Skeleton Key to Twilight Sepulchre and re-establishment of Nightingale Trinity secured this connection for immediate future. But the cyclical nature suggests eventual challenges. Historical patterns indicate that each generation must renew this covenant through its own trials and sacrifices, maintaining flow of luck that sustains operations throughout Tamriel. Throughout its long history, the organization has demonstrated remarkable capacity for survival and adaptation in a world of constant change. From origins in scattered bands of opportunistic thieves to current status as sophisticated continental network, consistent evolution has occurred while maintaining core identity and principles. This balance between adaptation and tradition represents the true legacy of the organization. As shadows continue to fall across Tamriel cities and valuable items continue to disappear from locked chests, the organization remains constant in inconstant world, not merely surviving, but thriving in spaces between light and darkness, between law and chaos. Whatever political powers rise or fall in coming era, one can be certain that adaptation, evolution, and continuation of ancient trade will persist, moving like shadows through margins of history, yet influencing its course in ways both subtle and profound. So there you have it, the complete history of Tamriel's most enduring shadow network, from its humble beginnings with legendary figures like Rajim to its sophisticated continental operations spanning millennia. The story of an organization that proved crime, when properly organized and guided by strong principles, could become as enduring as any empire. If you enjoy diving into this hidden history of Tamriel, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into Elder Scrolls lore. What aspect of this criminal empire fascinated you most? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.